Okay. Ready?
Yeah,
Well, once I get talking, you have to kick me to get me to shut up. So,
Indeed.
hey, it's part of just growing old. We
Yeah,
like
yeah.
to tell you stories. If I repeat myself, stop me, okay?
Sure, sure.
But we wanted to talk today about my background in travel because much of what we're going to have in the initial sessions of conversation with Papi are talking about places I've been, things I've learned, what I've encountered. So we were joking earlier when Assi asked me what was the first foreign country I visited. I said, well, I grew up in the eastern United States on the East Coast. My father was military. And so I lived everywhere from New York State to Key West, bouncing around as a kid. So I don't know whether it's nature or nurture that makes people want to travel. My older brother and two baby sisters, they never went, after they got out of high school, they never went more than 100 miles from where they went to high school, except my brother went to Vietnam and then he came home.
Okay.
But man, from day one, I'm ready to go somewhere new, learn something else. So my first foreign country, Assay laughed, was Louisiana, South Louisiana. It is a completely different culture than my experience in the rest of the United States. I found it to be absolutely delightful. That is not a critical comment. And in recent years, I've been back a couple of times. South Louisiana is still very unique.
Yeah.
I recommend it as a place to visit or a place to go move to if you really want a very family-oriented, relaxing lifestyle. My second foreign country, and I got to say this, is Texas. Texas is truly a state of mind.
Those two places are in the States, but are not part of it.
I joke that they're adjacent to, but not necessarily part of the United States. So, and I've never lived in Texas, but I've worked there quite a bit because I'm in the oil industry. And it's kind of hard to escape the oil industry in Texas and Louisiana. So, but the first time I went outside of the formal United States, I had been living in Baton Rouge, working at a refinery, and got an opportunity to move to Aruba. This was 1973, so that's quite a while ago that we went. I packed up my wife and my three daughters. All of the oldest, I think, was three maybe at the age, and just moved to Aruba. It was supposed to be 18 months, but we ended up staying there 7.5 years. And I really didn't want to leave. My kids cried. They consider themselves, the girls now even in their 50s, when you ask them where they're from, they'll say Aruba because that was their formative years. But believe me, there was a stark difference, and it took a lot of time to adapt, and some American families never adapted to living there. For me, I died and gone to heaven. It was a great place to work. It was exciting. We lived within walking distance of the beach. The beaches were great. And I joke that every day was the same. I mean, it was almost zero clouds. I think in the time that I was there, unlike Curacao, Aruba then, I don't know now.
Which is next door.
Yeah, next door, but it hardly ever rained. It maybe rained 2, maybe 3 times a year for less than an hour, and I don't remember seeing a mud puddle, okay?
So they don't have like the hurricane season as we have in
neither
DR?
does Curacao. No hurricane at all, but here we get heavy rains like we did this morning.
Yeah.
And you know it's raining. There's puddles out there. But in Aruba, it was kind of like the movie Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
Every day was the same. You repeat it, go to bed, the same, repeat, go to bed. But we loved it. It was great. But what was different from the United States? There were no McDonald's, Burger King, no fast food, garbage food restaurants like Americans love. So we had to learn to eat real
seafood.
No, real food instead of fast food garbage. But basically, if a restaurant has a drive-through window, there's probably nothing in there worth eating. As a good rule of thumb, I've seen that all over the world. But there we were. We ate local food. We ate Chinese food. We ate Indonesian-based food. And I can get some of that now in Curacao after all these years. But there was also no TV. An American without TV?
You'll get bored.
And that really got a lot of people just nervous. But At the time, Venevisión, 2 hours a day, only in Spanish.
That was the channel.
That was it. And it was on 2 hours, take it or leave it. And well, my oldest daughter, between watching that and having friends from Argentina and Cuba, she came out of there fluent in Spanish. And
I can imagine watching that every day
but
for
there was
2 hours
nothing
straight.
else. So I guess the other thing is there was really no place to go. Americans love their cars.
Yeah.
The essence of America is a car. I mean, go somewhere.
To be in the road.
Be on the road. I mean, an island that's what, 19 miles long?
Yeah.
It's not the same problem here.
Yeah, but Aruba is smaller than Curacao, isn't it?
Well, it's shaped differently, but
pretty much the same.
Pretty much the same.
Okay, I
pretty
can
much,
imagine
there's
that.
nowhere to go and no reason to get there fast. But so that means everybody's on the road and driving fast. They in Aruba, I don't know if they still have it, but they had a thermometer at a major intersection. But the thermometer didn't read the temperature. It listed the number of deaths so far that year. So everybody called it the thermometer of the dead. And you could just drive by. Well, now we're at 20. No, now we're at 30. So
it was a death-mometer.
It was a death thermometer. So, okay. But so that was a good bit different. The other thing were the driving rules. Americans are set in the way. We're on the correct side of the road.
Yeah. Which is the right side.
Which is the right side, but you got to be careful because a Brit will say, no, they're on the right side of the road, meaning correct. So,
and there will be no outcoming traffic.
So most of us had at least a fender bender or two in the first few months that we were there. Plus, there were no traffic lights on the island. There were a lot of circles, and that's still quite fairly unusual for an American. So to get used to the traffic circle. Here in Curacao, completely used to it.
Yeah, but you have them both. You have the traffic lights,
but you also have
and
traffic lights here, and people still drive crazy. So, but so you got that issue. Let's see. So the food, the other thing is you really needed to enjoy the beach. If you were not a beach lover, there wasn't much else to do.
Yeah, just the beach.
We took up with my kids. We took up hiking all over the island. We took up bicycle riding, at least for a little while. I took up jogging until I destroyed my knees. But we definitely took up swimming. I mean, if Aruba probably has the best beaches in the entire Caribbean, in my experience, maybe in the entire world. One whole side of the island, the leeward, it's like a giant bathtub. You can swim out a half a mile, 3/4 of a mile. The water's not that deep.
Yeah, shallow.
There's no waves. Maybe it gets 30, 40 foot deep.
You mentioned in previous sessions that you were scuba diving, or not scuba diving. It was
snorkeling.
Snorkeling, with a baseball cap.
The baseball cap
frame.
For the sun. Thank God I did that. I've no hair left, although it was pretty much gone when I was there anyway. I think by the time I was 20, my youngest daughter was a year and a half old, and she did, because I was 6'3" at the time, a little shrunk now. And she's a little person and not seeing anything but daddy with hair. And I was bent over one day tying my shoes, and she goes, "Daddy, you got no hair." So it's been a long time without hair, but it was a great place to raise up my kids, and it was enjoyable. I've been back a few times to visit. Of course, since then we've been all over the world, and when it was time to go, I'd like to say that the company that I was working for, and they treated me very well. It's an excellent company. A major oil company. They asked me, where did I want to go next? Well, I had learned a bit of Papiamento living in Aruba. I've pretty much lost it all here, but I'm trying to recoup it. But I had also learned a bit of Spanish. And I said, well, gee, I really like to go to a Spanish-speaking country, thinking, I'll practice my Spanish. And I had El Salvador in mind because, believe it or not, back in the 70s, going and working in El Salvador was like dying and going to heaven. It was second only to Aruba in terms of popularity.
It compares to
but we only had a small refinery there, so it was difficult to get in. But I said, Spanish-speaking country. We're all over this Latin America, Central America. They sent me to Miami.
Come on,
go,
it's pretty much the same.
Pretty much the same. I have to admit.
That was close enough.
Yeah, close enough for government work.
Yeah.
So I learned a lesson there. Read the fine print of the agreement.
Yeah.
But to come from a small town and small community environment, living in Aruba with no congestion, no crowds, almost like Arizona surrounded by the ocean. It's a desert type island.
Yeah, same
to
here.
go to Miami with millions upon millions of people and from all over the world.
Yeah.
You have the Latinos coming in because that's the hub of trade. In the winter, you have Canadians coming down.
They're coming down, yeah.
Because they're called snowbirds. So the first year or so was very difficult for my whole family to adjust. I mean, one, we had cold weather. I think that was the only time in the last 50 years that you could wake up in the morning in Miami and have ice in the yard. The mud puddles had iced over. It was the winter of 80 or 81, something like that. My kids were crying, "Dad, this is a terrible place. We don't like this island. Let's go back to Aruba.
Yeah.
Let's go home. Let's go get out of here."
How the world changed because cold weather in Miami, but yesterday you mentioned that a few days ago they registered 100
3
degrees
digits
in Alaska.
In Alaska, yeah. The world has changed.
Yeah.
Clearly the climate is changing. Clearly, now, how much of that is caused by mankind and how much can be mitigated by changing our lifestyle and our energy infrastructure, I think that's open to a lot of debate because I hear billions and trillions required to reduce the global temperature by 2 degrees maybe. But I don't hear an awful lot about the probabilities of that happening.
Probably they want to apply the Genghis Khan strategy.
The what?
The Genghis Khan strategy. Don't you know Genghis Khan?
Oh, yeah.
The Mongol?
Yeah.
That he enslaved that many people that the climate change by 2%, like in the atmosphere because...
he killed so many people.
Yeah, he killed so many people that
yeah. I'm not a liberal, but I don't think they're deliberately trying to kill us. But I got to keep that in mind.
Yeah, maybe with that strategy, they can help the environment.
Yeah, who knows what's around the corner? But I do know back in the early 80s, we had ice in the yard. Never saw snow there. Never saw snow in Louisiana. But every winter, everybody's looking out the window hoping to see it. But triple-digit temperature in Alaska is a very real thing. But I wanted to talk for a minute about the cultural shock because for my family coming back to the United States was visiting a foreign country. And there's a lot to love in America. I love America. People are trying to get in legally. People are trying to get in illegally. So despite our issues and problems, the whole world wants to come there. But my girls were not exposed to the concept of crime, that something would get stolen if you let it unattended. In Aruba, there was nothing. No doors were ever locked in Aruba. Nobody ever bothered you. They had friends from all over the world, every creed and color. They had no concept of racial prejudice, one way or the other. I mean, people think that the white man has prejudice for blacks and we're the owner of the prejudice. The fact that you're my son kind of puts the boot to that idea. And in the Dominican Republic, there's mixtures of everywhere, and that's increasingly in the United States, but they had no idea. They also had no idea of a slum. Okay, there were poor people in Aruba. I'm not saying everybody was wealthy because they're not. They weren't then, they aren't now.
But they could get along.
But you could go anywhere at any time of the day or night. Nobody bothered you. Okay, and in fact, if you were driving around in Aruba, and I hear stories that that's probably still typical, it's kind of happens here. If you have problems with your car,
somebody's going to stop to help you out.
Not only is somebody going to stop, a whole bunch of people are going to stop, and let's enjoy this event.
The same happens in the R nowadays. Like if you have a flat tire or something is wrong with the engine, maybe it's just overheated, and you got to fill up the the water in the radiator. If they see the car in the shoulder of the street, somebody's gonna stop and they're gonna keep like just like adding people as if it was a party. Everyone will stop and look at the engine.
Give you their opinion.
What happened? I don't know. I just stopped by because they were here. I just wanted to.
I wanted to see what was going on.
Yeah.
Well, that's the way Aruba was 40 years ago. It's kind of the way it is here in Curacao. And I'm sure it's the same way in the DR.
Yeah.
In the United States, probably not a crowd would gather, but it's my experience, having been all over the world, there's good people everywhere.
Yeah.
So,
but in average, they just don't care.
In the United States, they're a little bit more hands off. I had just left working for the oil company and maybe 35 years ago, and I was going down the road and I saw a car pulled over, and it was an older couple, and the older guy was standing, maybe my age now. So I stopped to help. They needed to change the tire.
Okay.
And so I, of course I did it. And it took me just a few minutes, changed the tire, and the gentleman wanted to offer me money. And I said, no, I don't need the money, but thank you. The next time you see somebody having a problem,
help them out.
Either help them or give them the money.
Yeah.
And he kind of looked at me. But I've read things that more and more people around the world and in the United States, people are thinking that way. You live in a community, even if it's a gigantic community with 350 million people, there's still a lot of good out there in all parts of the world, and especially the United States. But it was clearly a cultural shock for my daughters to come from
to the warm love from the Caribbean to cold-hearted United States,
and crime and racial issues and language issues. So that was a major adjustment. And then we stayed there. Well, the family stayed there intact, but since I was still working for an oil company, my responsibilities had me going pretty much everywhere in Central America, the northern part of South America. I think there's 2 Caribbean islands I haven't been to. They're on my list, but in a 10-year time period, I was traveling all over the Americas, not outside the Americas, but all over doing business. Even though we were a Caribbean-based affiliate, we had an affiliate in Argentina, and I was in and out of Argentina several times, and I think I've talked about that before. It's not because it's Argentina. It just happened to be the first time in the country within 15 minutes I got my pocket picked. So fortunately I got out of that without a problem. But the work that I was doing required me to travel, or from my point of view, gave me the opportunity to travel. And I thrived on it. And pretty much all the guys that I work with, the guys and gals, there was opportunity to travel. It was just a great business to be in, and using Florida as a hub, you can, that is the gateway to Latin America. Yeah. So there we got exposed to, whenever there was a revolution, we got new and different and interesting people showing up. The week we arrived kind of wasn't all that good, but the Marilitos were arriving. The Marilitos.
What was that?
It's because you're so young. Back in the early 80s, Castro realized that the United States would take any Cuban as a political gesture. See, Cubans want to stay in the United States. So he emptied his jails. Why should he feed them? Why should he pay to have them locked up?
As if it was a business.
And they were mostly coming out of Port Mariel, so they got the nickname Marilitos.
Oh,
and it took 4 or 5 days for the Cuban community to, because I had good friends very much involved with helping people escape the tyranny of Cuba, or otherwise known as the workers' paradise of the Caribbean. They were very much involved as good members of the Cuban community. And after a week or so, they were horrified at what they were seeing. The crime rate just skyrocketed. Oh, wow. So we came in, that was not a good experience. And I had explained to my daughters, well, this is kind of a new crime wave once I explained crime. So, but also when Somoza got kicked out of Nicaragua, revolutions and turmoil in Venezuela. There's waves of Venezuelans that have
Going
come
to the
in,
States, yeah.
waves of Nicaraguans coming in, El Salvadorians, you name it. It's always been Miami, a very true melting pot.
Yeah.
Most people think Cuban when they think Miami, but
yeah.
no, it's the whole general area.
It's just
and
that
no, there's
Cubans been there longer.
There's Latinos from all over the place, including a very strong Mexican presence there. So because Florida, the flower,
yeah.
if you speak only Spanish and you're coming to the United States, let's go to that place that sounds like a flower.
Yeah.
That is a flower.
Yeah.
So there's people from all, and of course from Europe and everywhere else. So we found it to be a very good experience for me for work and for the family living in that kind of environment. Once we got used to the crowds, I'm still very dubious about getting around a bunch of people. It's just the way I'm wired. But that really set the stage for us. And when I decided to go on my own as a consultant, I did a couple of small jobs in Central America and in Latin America. And then I was contacted by friends at the World Bank. And for 5 years or so, I was going all over the place for the World Bank, not as an employee, but as a consultant.
Yeah.
So that really stamped my card, if you would, because now it was not just Latin America,
it was
Africa. I've been sub-Saharan Africa, except Nicaragua, but then coming into Europe several times, into France, France and Germany at different times for projects with them. It really made me way more international. And of course, it's one kind of an experience to go into Latin America, even the poorest countries, it's still a Latin type experience. Yeah. And basic Spanish does help you, even if it's only quisiera una cerveza y cuánto cuesta. Yeah, ¿Dónde está el baño? So the survival Spanish. So, but when you travel in Africa, that's a totally different experience. Yeah. Most of them had a colonial history, but different countries involved.
I was talking with my wife the other day that we have this idea of traveling around the world, and she mentioned something super curious, that what if we start traveling in the southern part of the globe instead of the northern part of the globe, because the southern part of the globe seems to have like more rich cultures in terms of history, archaeology, diversity, and ethnicity, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like you have Africa, which is a massive piece of land, but everywhere you go, they seem to have different customs, even though they're the same.
Yeah,
people.
well,
Same in Latin America.
Yeah.
You have Argentinians that behave in a different way than Mexicans.
A joke about a friend of mine, an Argentine friend of mine said this. What's an Argentine? He goes, it's an Italian speaking Spanish who thinks he's English.
Yeah.
So Argentina is rather unique.
See, like
and I spent 4.5 years there on different assignments. Yeah. Delightful place.
Like they have weird mixtures there because of the that colonial era that everyone will have a colony down there. Meanwhile, when you go to Europe, it seems to be a little bit
Europeans just make war against each other, and they never really colonized each other. But the sad fact is as you go further south, the poverty, the wealth level tends to go down, with a few exceptions.
That's true.
But resource rich. That's why most of the countries that were colonies were colonized, because the colonizing company out of Europe, or in effect the United States, we didn't call it a colony. People wanted those resources, and they got wealthy. I mean, if you look at the history of Britain in India, India is probably the oldest culture on earth. May well even predate the Egyptians in terms of culture, and probably even predate the Chinese based on most recent research. But the Brits overran them through a variety of tactics and basically looted the treasury.
Yeah.
That was a very strong economy, and it was just a net loss over the over the 100 years or so that they were a colony, and they still haven't fully recovered. But a very rich, it's one of the most unique cultures on the face of the earth. I've not made it into India proper, but I have spent significant time on the ground through several trips in Pakistan and then in Afghanistan, and all that area has very similar cultures. I realize that a purist is going to say, no, this is different, this is different, this is different. But from an outsider looking in, I went to Pakistan, and Pakistani food and Indian food is very similar. I mean, the Indians won't eat a cow, and the Pakistanis, mostly Muslim, won't eat a pig. But so the meat stock is different.
It's not halal, that's they would say.
Yes, not by any stretch of the imagination, but I enjoy all the different spices in the cooking, because your tia, my wife, her her great grandparents were from India. One was a Hindu and one was a Muslim. They realized that wasn't going to work, so they got out of Dodge, went to Syria. And then her grandfather moved from Syria to the Dominican Republic. But that whole family culture with the spices and way of cooking and lifestyle, that all is from there. So when I brought her with me there, she felt like she was at home.
Oh, yeah.
And we really enjoyed the food. I would go back in a heartbeat just for the culture experience and the food.
But there in Syria, they don't have like a mixture of those Arabs and Indians all together.
Oh, yeah.
So,
well, throughout Asia, throughout East Africa, throughout much of Africa, there's been different waves of Asians, whether it's Indians, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, Filipinos, that have come looking for business opportunities. I mean, the Indians in East Africa are a dominant factor in the economy. And Indians coming in even now for Dubai in the last 50 years. If you go to the main sections that everybody sees in Dubai, and we were blessed to live there maybe for 9 or 10 months. Thank God we had a good expense account. Wow. In the wealthy part, I joke it's Disneyland for the super rich, okay? But in the parts that the tourists don't see and that you don't know is even there, is where the Indians and the Filipinos live, the people who actually built that economy, who build that city, and they are an enclave unto themselves. But because your tia could pass on the street for somebody born and raised in Mumbai, they thought she was a local, and we got into restaurants that were run by the families of those people on the edge, not in the super wealthy sections. And so we had a fantastic time. We still talk about the food. But this is you asked me earlier about the way you visit. You can go to countries like I did in Peru, never left the airport, but I was in Peru. The reason why we didn't leave the airport is Shining Path was still on the rampage, and I was there with the World Bank Group, and they weren't allowed to leave the airport. So technically I've been to Peru. Big deal.
The passport says you've been there.
The passport says exactly right. But so many people go to a foreign country, and I don't know whether they just didn't think it through or they're so set in their own ways. They'll look around and go, yeah, but I want real food. Where's Burger King? Where's Pizza Hut? Where's Kentucky Fried Chicken? Okay, you're in the country. You might even spend a couple of weeks there. But if you're not going to restaurants frequented by local people, consistent with your status in life, but I'll eat on a street corner in Trinidad, the Indian food, and I love it. And I've done the same thing throughout Africa. Of course, I've had all kinds of intestinal problems, not because the food is bad, not because the culture is bad. It's just your stomach gets used to a certain kind of bacteria. And so you can suffer some consequences.
The immune system is not used to
It's just not used to it. But from my point of view, you really haven't visited a country until you've been out on the street eating the food and experiencing the way those different people from those countries live on a day-to-day basis.
So, based on that, do you think that people travel deeper or more superficially nowadays?
Well, there's an element of superficiality because I'm totally turned off by the modern culture of selfies.
Yeah.
To me, that's disgusting. And it's egotistical. So to travel all the way across the world to stand in front of the pyramids, to put your face and the pyramid is in the background, that's a very superficial. I mean, that's just stay at home and look in the mirror, for Christ's sake. So, but there's different levels, and to really go to the local restaurants or eat the way the local people, okay, there's an element of risk. You could get a bacteria that's different. So, and it happens. I'm not going to say it doesn't, but the eating the different foods you might not even think were good to eat. Hey, regular people are eating that. So that's an experience. But to be able to interact with locals, again, there's another degree of security because you have to understand when you're in a foreign country that there's an element of human nature globally. It has nothing to do with language or culture. There's a couple of percent that prey on other people, the criminal mindset. So you're in a foreign country, you look like you have more money than the average person, you might be older than the average person, you dress different. You can spot an American anywhere, okay? So it's just the way we are. Somehow, speaking loudly and waving dollars. That's a joke. But some are like that. Or you can spot the Texas accent, okay? Yeah. So you have to have security thought through, and we talk about this in other sessions about safety, security, health management, planning for your trip. But let's get past all of that. Whenever you can get into a situation where you're dealing with local people, ideally from the highest level to the lowest level, then you've really visited the country. Let me give you an example. I was living in Aruba, took my car on the ferry to Venezuela, drove from Venezuela into Cucuta, Colombia. That's a story in itself. But along the way, I saw a guy on the side of the road with a little tin hut, not much of a hut at all. And he had little wooden figurines hand carved on the side of the road. Well, I'd seen them in the stores in Cartagena and Bogota, and I go, oh, here's a guy actually making them. Yeah. So I stopped. He had absolutely no English. It was probably the first American no. Sign language works. But I had a dozen survival Spanish words. And so he clearly, I bought 8 or 9 of them. They were dirt cheap. It was pocket money. But then I managed to convey to him, please sign them. And he called his wife and his family out. What I realized later is in his 30 years of sitting on the side of the road and making his primitive art, but very good little figurines, he never signed it. Nobody ever asked him to sign it. So that was a day. So I'm getting goosepimples remembering it. The next thing I know, they bring out coffee and snacks, and we passed a delightful hour and a half talking with this older guy with his little kids. They're all in that shanty right behind his little shed. It was a very important lifetime experience. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and that kind of cemented things for that trip. That was the high. Over time, you lose stuff and you travel all over. It's hard to keep stuff. So I don't have a single one of his carvings left, but I have the memory. Yeah. And that was delightful. And then on the same trip, I got back from Colombia into Venezuela and got lost.
Shout out to the Colombian guy if you're watching this.
Yes, he probably doesn't have a TV yet. So, I mean, there was no electricity. It was primitive time, but delightful people. I got lost in the city. We went to a shopping center, and I was on the edge of that. I guess it was a gas station or a little snack shop. And I went in to ask for directions, and I had a map, and I was pointing, and donde es, and que pasa, and basically really rudimentary Spanish. And the guy, yeah, and he's answering me in Spanish.
And you trying to understand?
Yeah, I'm trying to understand. And derecho, derecha. Well, it's okay. It all sounds the same to me, but either you're going straight or you're turning. And as I'm leaving, okay, I got a feel for getting out of it because no GPS, none of that.
Yeah.
And as I got to the door, the guy said to me in perfect New York English, "I want to make sure you understood what I said." What?
Come on.
And I go, I said, you spoke English this whole 15 minutes? And he goes, yeah. He said, but it was so unusual for an American to try to speak Spanish. He goes, you were making such a good effort, and it was enjoyable here.
He just wanted to see you suffer.
No, he didn't want to see me suffer. It was enjoyable. I wasn't upset. I wasn't angry. We were making progress. So he went back over the map, made sure I really understood, and I hadn't. But it was a delightful 15-minute conversation. And that was 40-something years ago. I still remember it. I don't remember the name of the shopping center. I don't even remember the name of the town. But I remember that experience with that guy. There's good people everywhere.
Yeah, as long as you have the memories, they're still alive.
Yeah. So, and that's what I call really visiting a country.
Yeah.
Now, I've been to other countries where I was in the king's palace and sat down and spent several hours talking with the king's brother-in-law. I've been to another country in Chechnya, where I spent quite a bit of time talking with Colonel Dudayev, the breakaway leader. So, and in Argentina, I never sat down with the president, Menem at the time, but certainly as Minister of Energy and people who were advising him. So I've been to all extremes, at the very highest level and at the very lowest level in terms of financial well-being. But one of the lessons I learned coming up in trailer parks as a kid, I never lived in a house until I left home. To me, home was a tin box. And at the time, the biggest trailer we ever had was 32 feet long, 8 feet wide, with a brother and two younger sisters. But we managed. But you come up poor, and one of the first things you have to understand as a kid, otherwise you get beaten down, is you look around and you see people who are better off. Many of those people equate better off as equal to better than. So when you're in the low end of the social economic strata in the richest country in the world, you kind of look around, and if you don't want to go through life as a victim, and that's a fool's game, is that I early on did not let other people's attitude inflect me. Okay, they were better off, but they were not better than.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of the most important life lessons I learned as a little guy. Otherwise, you just feel beaten down and envious and frustrated and victimized. Yeah. And that attitude has carried over everywhere I go. I am perfectly comfortable talking with the maid in our building here in the refinery in Curacao. Obviously, I know the names of all the key people. I also know the names of the janitor and the ladies who make coffee and clean the room. And I greet them equally.
That's why it's important to stay humble all the time.
Well, yeah. And then you have interaction, and you get to know way more about a place where you're living, because you're open to everyone. I mean, and like I said, there's good people everywhere. Your Tia went to a beauty parlor when we first got here to get her hair, because Dominican women in their hair, that's super. That's when she met Mio. So any Curaçaoan watching this, Mio runs a delightful shop.
Shout out to Mio.
Shout out to Mio. But your Tia, in talking with her, and it was a friendly environment, it turns out that Mio is half Dominican.
Yeah.
And her mother's from the same pueblo, San Juan de Magalana, as your Tia's family, is where your grandparents live even today. I wouldn't be at all
that my grandma
pretty much know the family or have met. So to be here, her first time in Curacao, and not knowing anybody, her first experience here was delightful, because she took the effort to interact with local people, and it turns out they're damn near family anyway.
Yeah.
So
they're not that local.
yeah, you're not that local. Yeah, I mean, and the payout for me is that every so often she comes back from the beauty parlor with 2 big lattes of mondongo, or well, good. The next time she makes it, I won't save any for you. And sancocho. She makes it just like your abuela makes it. Phenomenal. So, and every time that happens, maybe every 4 or 5 weeks or so, that happens, I'm gaining 3 or 4 pounds that weekend because I eat it. So there's an excellent example of what I mean in truly visiting a country. If you're going to stay wherever it's possible, when you're Tia, I go to better hotels, but when I'm not with your Tia, I like mom and pop hotels. That's the best way to enjoy Barbados. It's full of major hotels. I mean, some of the best in the Caribbean. Stay in mom and pop hotels and you have a totally different experience. Yeah. And it's delightful. And of half the time I've been there, I've done that. Now, because of security issues and health issues for your Tia, I tend to go when I'm traveling for business, stay in better hotels. But if as long as there's good security and there's internet and they have a backup power generator, give local hotels a chance. Shame on me, I don't remember the name of it, but I've been in and out of Guyana before they discovered oil and got filthy rich, and most recently. And one of my favorite hotels it's great. Marriott Bonvoy has a phenomenal hotel. It's great. Probably one of the nicest in the Caribbean. I don't like to stay there. There's an Indian family down the road.
Probably named
Well, they own most of the motels in the United States, so they've expanded. Or they may have come out of Guyana. It's a very large East Asian India community. So you've got indigenous people. You've got people who are from Africa, descendants of slaves. You've got the European mix. Guyana has same as Trinidad, a very interesting mix of DNA and cultures. But to me, to go to that little family hotel, which met the basics, nothing fancy, was way more enjoyable than a couple of times I was forced to stay at the Marriott for business reasons. And of course, when you then ask for where is a good restaurant, really good food, they're not going to, they'll point out the most expensive one where all the tourists go, but that's not necessarily, high price is not necessarily equivalent with good food. Yeah. So I enjoy the meal. It's okay. Regular everyday people are eating it. I'm going to take the chance.
And I'm pretty sure that people at their lowest in terms of financial, I don't know if statistics can support this statement, but they are way more interesting than people at the highest financial level. Like you can get along with them easily. You can talk about different topics. They always will have a funny story to tell, something super interesting. Meanwhile, the people at their highest level in the economics, if you want to put it that way, there seems to be more like a selfish, probably.
They're more concerned with things and money and power and things, whereas the lower you go down, people are concerned life and family. One of the guys that I traveled with the World Bank is from Algeria. I won't say his name because I don't have permission. He has a doctorate in international finance. And his father was an imam. He's older than me, so probably his father has passed. We would have tremendous discussions about economics because I'm an engineer economist. So talking with a guy with his doctorate is like my own private seminar. But then when I realized that his father was an imam and he realized I have a minor in theology, man, did we ever have some phenomenal discussions on comparative religion. Actually, I've read, because of his influence, I didn't quite finish the second reading of the Quran. The first one was very dry, a difficult read. The second one was much more poetic, a better translation, because I kept asking him questions and he goes, Tom, I appreciate your interest and your open-mindedness. Here, read the Quran and then let's talk instead of me pointing out different things. If I hadn't made the effort, that whole slice of my life that opened up in comparative religions, that door would have never been open. But at the same token, I've been in and out of Panama many, many times for over a 4 or 5 year period. My favorite person to talk to there was our driver. He spoke English. That's why he got the job as a driver. A regular, average, everyday guy, is not with his wife anymore, but he raised his son and daughter. And we talk about family life. We talk about philosophy. We talk about the challenges of every regular, everyday people. And I enjoyed my conversations with him. And he's on WhatsApp. And I have his email address, and whenever I see something interesting, now I send him stuff where Trump wants to take the canal back. It's my canal. So, but he's a good enough friend, he laughs, okay? And he always sends me cartoons with President Trump and stuff. So it's a very good interaction. But we've had hours of heartfelt discussion about life.
Yeah, that's what like when you find random people that you can discuss different topics and talk about life. Yeah.
And clearly, it is from a Panama perspective. He's never been out of the country, not likely to ever be out of the country. And I have another friend that owns gold mines. Okay, and he was already wealthy. He was a good engineer and an architect, and I think a lot of good. No, there's another guy that I met through my friend in Africa. And he was already wealthier than me. He invested in a unique way to develop a gold mine. And now his money's pouring in. But before the money started pouring in, I go, hey, what are you going to do with all that money, assuming you're successful? And he talked and talked and talked, and finally I go, but you already have that. You've already been there. You've already done that. How many of things like that are you going to own? It finally came down to, there was a very expensive, high-powered car. I don't know if it was a Lamborghini or something like that. He finally came down to that if he made millions upon millions of dollars, that was the only thing he was net going to change about his life. And I said, well, go rent it for a month. After a month, what are you going to do with it? And he had to admit, no, it's great to have the opportunity. It's wonderful to have the challenge. Men need to have a purpose in their life, regardless of their economic background. And he had this opportunity. He rolled the dice with the family fortune, the friends of his family fortune, and it's paying off for him. But he already thought through in a discussion with me, well, what are you going to do? Yeah, no, I've already done that. No, a Lamborghini.
Yeah, those moments when you realize that being a millionaire or even a billionaire is not actually that fulfilling for your soul.
What's next?
Yeah.
What's next? If money was fulfilling, then why do rich kids use drugs and destroy their life? Yeah. So,
they always keep looking for more.
We're looking for more indulgent. You read about Hollywood types and billionaire types. I love the Elon Musk. The last time I checked, he was in a $50,000 prefabricated house.
Yeah.
Whereas people who are only worth 500 million, they have to have that $100 million house. Yeah. And they have to have a garage full of fancy cars. And it's always they want more.
I think it's just to show it off.
Yeah, well, or they don't know what else to do, and they think it's going to bring them happiness. I'm interested in following the career of young Mr. Elon Musk, because what seems to motivate him is the next challenge, the next creative thought, the next creative venture that in many cases nobody else has ever even tried before. Rather than, you can sleep once you're in the bedroom and the lights are off and the air conditioner's on if it's hot outside. What's the difference between his $50,000 house and the $100 million mansion estate? There's no difference. And you get up in the morning, you still got to put your underwear on one leg at a time. So, it's, I guess I've always been that skeptical. I'm comfortable. I'm not wealthy, but I guess that ties into my idea of travel and interacting with people and seeing things. And, you know, I didn't, if I could have, I would have stopped at the pyramid and climbed on it. But at the particular time I was there, I drove past them twice a day for a week and got very close, but didn't go on them because I couldn't go on them. But let me tell you, even though I was sick and could barely breathe, I had to almost crawl up the steps. I spent a whole day slowly walking through the main museum in Cairo.
Wow, I would like to go there.
Wow, I get goosebumps even remembering. I mean, what a total immersion in one of the most ancient cultures in the world. And now with what I've read as discoveries that the main pyramid, Khufu, it appears that there's a structure, there are structures going down way beneath it, and it's looking more and more like the power generation plant that wackos have been saying for 50 years or more. Oh, yeah, join the club, son. You can tell you're my son. I may be wrong, but it sure as hell is interesting. So for me to be able to spend, even though I could barely walk, I go, I'm not leaving here without doing that. Where did my friends go? A group of Americans? Fancy restaurants, casinos, places that they shouldn't go to, no matter where they are. But they missed the whole point of the visit from my point of view. So I've been blessed because I've been in Cairo off and on for 2 weeks because I was looking at a refinery there, of course. Actually, the refinery was in Alexandria. That's why I was driving past the pyramids. But I've also spent considerable time on the ground in Uganda. What's the connection between Uganda and Cairo?
In my mind, no connection.
The Nile. The Nile begins at Lake Albert in Uganda. Travels all that distance, the only river that flows north, and empties into the sea in Cairo. So I wish I could take a boat or travel or a car and go the whole length, but at least I've been on both ends. It's a humbling experience that this world is so huge, so majestic, so many natural wonders, and maybe the origins of humanity in the Rift Valleys near there, but certainly origins of one of the major civilizations in the world. What an experience. Maybe I'm weird. Call me weird. I'm not apologetic. I mean, that's how I felt I should spend my time. What else would I want to do?
Because the goal actually, going back to the wealthy stuff, the goal is not to have like a lot of money. It's just to be free. To be honest, to be free enough to enjoy what you like the most. In our case, is to travel, to know different cultures, to blend in, or at least try to blend in with different cultures.
Well, even if you don't blend in, to experience it on a real level. Not. I mean, I referred to as Dubai as the Disney World for the filthy rich. Well, okay, they're entitled to how they want to spend their money. And it was kind of unique to go to a shopping center and see a ski slope inside the shopping center. That's the only place in the world.
When I saw it on TV.
Yeah, and everything is well planned. It's a beautiful place. It's wonderful. But there's another side. It's not a dark side. It's just there's another side. Now, that's one experience in life, and I wouldn't trade it. Stayed at next to the best hotel. My boss stayed at the best hotel. I mean, I would feel nervous spending $3,000 a night for a hotel room, but even in the moderate hotel, it was still $900 a night. So yeah, thank God for the expense account. So it's a shame we couldn't have stayed longer. It was an interesting assignment. But for me, living in Dubai was great. I loved it. But it was a springboard for, I think, 2 trips into Afghanistan. And then another trip that got me into Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan. And then another trip that got me into Pakistan, 3 times into Pakistan. So I've been on, the most famous pass in the world is the Khyber Pass that connects Afghanistan and Pakistan. And there's the King of the Khyber Rifles. It's a story about the Brits when they controlled that whole area. And there's a movie about that going back to the 1940s. I've been on both ends of the Khyber Pass.
There you go.
And actually, I've been in part of it, and driving through it, squeezed between two local guys, and I had the local scarf on my head, sunglasses on. I had a beard, so I fit in. My Muslim friend, Jordanian or Palestinian with a Jordanian passport, he was clean shaven, and he was terrified the Al Qaeda guys would pick us up because they beat him because their version of the Quran, he should have facial hair. It's unmanly. To be clean shaven. So I was all set to fit in. We were driving through these passes. We must have passed, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 or more burned out Russian tanks. The pass was so narrow and so twisted, it was easy to see why the local were able to wipe out the Russian game plan. You had no business bringing a tank up into those passes. We go around the corner and there's a burned out tank. So incredible experience. I only once mingled with the local. We stopped at a local place to eat there, and my Muslim friend said, "I'm not going to eat that food." He has a very sensitive stomach, and I said, "Well, okay, I'll eat enough for both of us because they'll be insulted if we don't." You sat on a carpet on the dirt floor.
Yeah.
It was no windows in the restaurant, and you just sat there, and the food came out, and it was mutton, sheep of various flavors and spices. I enjoyed the meal. My friend stayed outside smoking.
So, you got sick?
No. One of the beauties of eating anywhere, anything, is make sure it's well done.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the time to have eggs over easy.
No.
It's not to have time to eat a hamburger. Actually, in places like that, I won't eat fish because it could be tainted.
Yeah.
I won't eat pork, even if they're serving pork, because if it's not fully cooked, you've got trichinosis. Yeah. And certainly not ground up beef, but beef or mutton, basically scrape off whatever is bad and get it well done. You're going to be pretty much all right.
Chicken as well.
I won't eat chicken because salmonella. If the guy's hands, if the cutting board was not good, I won't eat a salad. I won't eat fruit unless it's cut in front of me. I don't drink water of any type. I drink tea, pot after pot of tea. And in most places in the Middle East, it's boiled.
Yeah.
I mean, people wonder, how did the British overrun most of the world and form all their colonies?
Tea, yeah.
They got hooked on tea from China. And I don't think they realized it, but it was the boiling of the water meant that their army did not have dysentery.
Yeah.
And they could fire and reload the muskets 3 times faster than the French or the Spanish.
Because they weren't sick.
They weren't sick. So a friend of mine, Captain Danny, said whenever you're traveling in different parts of the world, just drink hot tea and go through the custom of having the tea boiled at your table so you can see that it actually reached the boiling temperature. Yeah, and that was the golden ticket. Captain Danny, God bless him, you're the father of 3 of your cousins. No, excuse me, 2. Yeah, your Tia is the mother of 3, but Captain Danny's the father of 2. Yeah, God bless him. He was a good friend. I miss him, but he admitted that was one of the strengths of the British Empire, to take tea from China and then drink it and then pretty much overrun everybody. So that didn't work for the Americans. I never quite figured out why. So you can tell anybody that's tuning in for the first time, we don't stand on formality. Both of us are barefoot. Both of us are very much relaxed.
Sorry, Tia, I can see this.
Yes, yeah. Your Tia will say one word to you. It'll be a never-ending avalanche of words to me. So, hey, you're influencing our son. So,
well, can't help it.
It's the way we're wired. At some point in time, to go, see me, amor como no, and then do what you're going to do.
Yeah. So I think we can call it around that. That's a good beat for this session.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for tuning in. And as Assi said, we hope you'll join us for others. We've got more planned, and we hope that we've been enjoyable. but we also hope we've been informative and perhaps giving you, if not factual information,
At least
a different way to look at things, a different way to think about what's important to you and how to get the most, if you're going to travel, how to get the most out of it. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you. Like, share, hit subscribe, and hit the notification button as well. Thank you guys. See you in the next session.
Das ist gut.